Welcome to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, a podcast for high-achieving women who are great at making money but struggle to build wealth. You'll learn how to take control of your money, increase your net worth, and make more. Ladies, it's time to create a life with more money and more freedom. Let's dive in. Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. And I want to give a huge welcome to anyone that is new to listening to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast. I want to welcome you, and I want to invite you to listen every Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a new episode is released, and we are just grateful that you're here, and we hope that you stay. All right. Now, today we are going to talk about how to enjoy the wealth building process, because a lot of us have been dreading or are dreading this because we think that it's going to be filled with deprivation and restriction, and we're just like, I don't want to have to deal with that. It makes you want to cringe. And today I want to explore how that doesn't have to be the case. Okay, I truly believe that you can enjoy this process. I think that you can get so much pleasure and joy from building wealth, from saving, from paying off debt, from investing. And I'm going to give you some practical things you can do to actually make this a part of your life so that you are motivated to actually save. You are motivated to actually build wealth, and you are motivated to invest. Because when you feel good doing it, when it's pleasurable for you, that means you're going to want to do it more and more and more. And that is what wealth building is all about. Now, before we get into today's topic, I want to invite you to sign up for my free training, which is called How to Build Wealth Without Going on a Strict Budget. This class is on demand and available to you right now. And in this class, I walk you through 3 essentials that you need in order to be able to build wealth without going on a strict budget. And here are those essentials. Essential number 1 is to adopt what I call the do both mindset. This is where we let go of the thought processes that make us believe that we can either live life, have fun, do things we enjoy, or build wealth and live a boring, frugal life in order to do so. That is the first essential. You have to really let that thought process go. The second essential is how to really define what it means for you to live your best life, because your definition of your best life is so different than my definition. And I want you to know that spending on any and everything without intention and avoiding your money altogether is not living your best life. Okay? That is not what it's all about. It's about getting clear on what truly matters to you and spending your money on those things while no longer spending on random things just for instant gratification and to indulge in things like retail therapy. And then the third and final piece of it is to become a woman who consistently builds wealth. And I tell you exactly how to do that. And we really focus on a concept I created around expanding your financial comfort zone. We all have a comfort level with different aspects of wealth. You have a comfort level with how much money you have saved, right? And we want to break through those levels. We want to expand our comfort zone. And the way we do that is through essential number 3, which I share with you in the class. And so in order to sign up, all you have to do is go to the show notes or simply go to jermainefoley.com/wealth class. And that's Jermaine with a G. Again, jermainefoley.com/wealth class, or simply go to the show notes and sign up. As soon as you sign up, you will be directed to the training immediately on your screen. And you will also receive the training in your email just in case you're not able to watch it right away. And I will tell you that you have 7 days to watch the training before it expires. And the reason why I did that is because of something called the law of diminishing intent. As your coach, I want you to start prioritizing things that truly matter to you, things that you really want to do, because when we don't prioritize them or put deadlines on them, guess what happens? We don't do them. The law of diminishing intent says that if you do not act on an idea within 48 hours, the likelihood of you actually doing that thing diminishes to almost zero. And of course, I'm giving you more than 48 hours, but I want you to prioritize watching this class because it can literally change everything for you. Because I truly believe when you give up the all or nothing thinking, which says that either I have to live this boring, frugal life in order to get my money under control, or because I don't want to do that, I'm just going to live life. I'm going to live it up to the fullest and I'm going to ignore my money and one day I'll get to it. Those two ways of thinking are keeping you stuck, because if you grab a hold to the I'm just going to live this boring, frugal life and focus on my money, what happens is you burn out and you quit. And then when you are in the other camp where you're just like, I'm just going to live it up and I'll think about my money later hardly ever comes. And you end up literally robbing yourself of the ability to build wealth. Like these years you have right now, you can be building wealth because you want to be financially secure, not just in the future, but also today. How would it feel to have money today and in the future? So this training will show you how to do all of that. It will show you how to get out of that all or nothing thinking and to really embrace what I call the do both mindset. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our topic for today. So when it comes to building wealth by the way of saving, paying off debt, and investing, many people think of these things as dreadful or painful experiences. We think of them as being filled with deprivation and restriction, and we often focus on all the things we will have to give up and all the things we won't be able to do. And this is the reason why so many Americans know that they should be building wealth, but they are not doing so. Why? It's obvious. We think it will be painful and we think it'll be an awful process. And we as human beings are programmed to avoid pain in order to survive. That's true for both mental pain as well as physical pain. Physical pain is obvious, right? Don't touch the fire or you'll burn yourself. But mental pain could be anything from sadness, boredom, deprivation, or just restriction. Our brains are trained to avoid pain at all costs. And so if we think that building wealth will involve pain, there's no wonder why more of us aren't doing so. Now, before we get into how you can actually make building wealth more pleasurable and fun, let's take a deeper look at the motivational triad, which is how we human beings are motivated. The motivational triad is how human beings are motivated. We are motivated by pleasure. So one of the things we're always looking to do is to seek pleasure. We are also demotivated by pain. So with that, we want to avoid pain. And we're also motivated by conserving energy. And one way that we conserve energy is by doing the thing that is most efficient and the things that we've made into habits. Now, let's just take a deeper look at what all three of these mean. And the way we can do that is by kind of seeing how it played out back in the cave days. So in order to survive, our ancestors had to seek pleasure, and they did that by eating foods that tasted good, that provided them pleasure. So the berries that were sweet, those are the berries that they continued to eat because it gave them pleasure. And in their eyes, pleasure meant survival, right? Another thing our ancestors did was they procreated. And by doing that, the population increased. Again, they survived. They did something that felt good and they were able to survive. Now, on the other hand, they learned quickly to avoid things that were painful. So they stopped touching the fire. Once they saw one person get burnt, they decided, okay, don't do that because if you do that, you might die. The other thing they probably learned really quickly was that they should stay away from certain animals. Animals like saber-toothed tigers, they were not friendly, and they probably watched someone get eaten before, and they learned, okay, stay away from that, because if you don't, you will die and not survive. And the motivational triad is all about motivating you so that you can survive. This was the way we survived all those years ago. The other thing that the motivational triad encourages us to do is to conserve energy, because we need to keep our energy in case we do need to run from a saber-toothed tiger. If we're out in the elements hunting, right? We need to conserve our energy. So you want to do the things that are easy. You want to do the things that are familiar and the things that you know how to do without much energy, right? This is where habits come into play. Now, all of this was fine and dandy back in the cave. And when you fast forward to today, in this sophisticated world that we live in, we are still operating off of this motivational triad. We just don't know that we're doing it. And the environment that we live in now is way more concentrated than the environment back then. So back then it was berries that tasted good, right? Berries were good for you. There were no negative consequences to eating berries. But now we have cupcakes and chocolate cake that's filled with sugar. And when you eat those foods, it feels really good, but it's false pleasure. It's pleasure that can lead to a consequence, right? But our brains don't know that. Our brains are just like, listen, that tastes good. That means it must be good. Eat more of that, right? Our brains are also wired to avoid pain. So if we try to do something that causes us pain, like maybe you try to stick to a strict budget and you feel deprived, your brain is going to be like, no, we're avoiding pain. Don't do that anymore, right? Although having a spending plan, I don't believe in strict budgets, but having a spending plan that is based on what's important to you in life and your financial goals is a good thing, but your brain may register that as, oh, you can't just go buy any and everything you want when you want to. That's deprivation. Let's not do that. And remember, it's both physical pain and mental pain that your brain wants you to avoid. And then the final piece is around conserving energy. Like if you have to learn something new, learn how to, use a budgeting software or learn a new technique for handling your money, your brain might be like, oh, we don't feel like doing this. Let's just do what we've been doing because that's our habit and it's just easier to live out our habit. Okay, so that's just a synopsis of the motivational triad. This is what we're working against. But instead of thinking of it that way, instead of thinking this is what we're working against, I want us to look at how we can become more clever and actually get the motivational triad working for us instead of against us on our wealth building journey. So first, let's take seeking pleasure. How can we make saving, paying off debt, and investing more pleasurable? One of the things that I think we can do is incorporate many mental celebrations along the way. So let's take the example of you maybe having a goal to save $10,000. Now here's where I'm going to get practical. Let's say you have a goal to save $10,000 and you want to start off by just automatically saving $200 every 2 weeks. So every time you get paid, maybe you've set up your direct deposit to go to a separate savings account. And every time you get paid, $200 automatically goes to your savings account. One way you can incorporate seeking pleasure is by allowing yourself to have a mini mental celebration. And you do this by intentionally feeling proud of yourself and grateful for the person that you're becoming. Okay, so let's say that you have that goal of $10,000 and you've got your automatic direct deposit of $200 going to your savings account and it's 2 weeks later, right? So you've already had $200 go in and now it's 2 weeks later and another $200 has gone in. And you didn't spend any of that first $200 that you put in there. This is the perfect time to pause and feel proud of yourself. Like literally feel proud that you deposited $200 in your savings account and went 2 weeks without dipping into it. Be proud of that. Allow yourself to get pleasure from that. Any positive emotion is going to feel good, right? Positive emotions that you generate in your body by the thoughts that you think allow you to experience pleasure. That is what pleasure is. It's a positive, good feeling emotion that you feel in your body. And when you can generate pride, because first of all, you set up the direct deposit, you let that money go into a savings account and you did not touch it, that is cause for a celebration. Feel proud of yourself, like, oh my gosh, I'm just getting started, but I'm so proud of myself for that. And be grateful for yourself. Be grateful for the person who set up that direct deposit. Be grateful for the person who didn't dip into it, even though you may have had an urge to do so. And then if you do have to dip in it, let's say, you've saved $800 at this point, and every $200 you're generating that feeling of pride and you're, really celebrating yourself and you're grateful that you set it up and you're following through and you're just allowing yourself to feel that pleasure. Let's say you do need to dip into it. You can still follow this same process. You don't need to beat yourself up, right? Because we're not trying to be perfect. And what is the money there for anyway? For emergencies, for when life happens, for when you need money, you have it, right? And so if you have to dip into it, the last thing you want to do is feel sad about that or feel guilty about that. You want to be grateful that you had the money. Be proud for the past you that actually saved it. So instead of having to go into debt to replace a flat tire or cover whatever expense that came up, you actually had that money sitting there. So that's another way you can generate that positive emotion. And that's what your brain wants. It wants to feel good. It wants to seek pleasure. And you can generate that from within. You do not need to go outside of yourself to get pleasure. You don't need to eat the cake or buy the new shoes, right, to get the pleasure. You can generate that pleasure from within by the thoughts that you think. And you can use your progress as triggers to think good thoughts about yourself and to get pleasure from actually building wealth. You could do the same thing with paying off debt. Every time you pay more than the minimum, you can celebrate that. You can be proud of yourself. You can be grateful. Every time you pay off that card, you can just be grateful for the past you that actually set the goal and took action towards the goal. Like just me talking about it to you right now, I'm feeling the emotions that you will feel. Those emotions are filled with pleasure, and that is going to keep you motivated to continuing to do so because your brain likes pleasure. This is a human motivator. Pleasure is a human motivator, and you get to generate that pleasure from within. And there are no negative consequences that you'll have to deal with from this kind of pleasure. Now, the pleasure that a lot of us seek, that false pleasure, maybe eating a bunch of sweets or buying a bunch of things that you weren't planning to buy, there's always negative consequences to those types of pleasure. But this kind of pleasure, there's actually positive consequences. So again, your brain will be motivated to keep going for 2 reasons. The first reason is because of the pleasure that you're receiving from deliberately feeling proud and grateful, those mini mental celebrations that you're having within yourself, but also because of another component of the motivational triad, which is to conserve energy. Now, the way our brains conserve energy is by relying on habits, and habits are formed by repetition. And if you continue to save that $200 biweekly again and again and again and again, your brain is going to want to keep doing it. Why? Because you have now created a habit and you're constantly reinforcing that habit with pleasure. It's like a triple dose, right? You are giving yourself pleasure by having those mini mental celebrations, feeling proud of yourself, feeling grateful, all of those things, and feeling it in your body. Then you're also doing it over and over again. So you're conserving energy. So you're hitting 2 of the motivational triad pieces right then and there, seeking pleasure, conserving energy by making this a habit. And then you're reinforcing that habit with the celebration. So it's like you are solidifying that habit with positive reinforcement. This is so powerful, and this will have your brain on board with building wealth like no other way I can think of. Now, let's talk about the third component of the motivational triad, which is all about avoiding pain. How can we let our brains see wealth building as a way to avoid pain? Now, remember, at first glance, when we first started talking about this, we thought of building wealth as painful, right? It's filled with deprivation, restriction, FOMO, fear of missing out. And this is the reason why most Americans put it off, right? Because they think that they have to deprive themselves, be filled with restriction, and they'll miss out on all the things. But let's intelligently think about how wealth building can actually allow you to avoid pain instead of it causing pain. Now, let's just walk ourselves through this. I am a big proponent of you all giving yourself a stash of cash that you can do whatever you want with, right? So you're never, ever in a situation where you don't have money to spend on yourself. So you decide what that amount is, depending on your income, depending on your goals, depending on your priorities. You have that money set aside that you can just spend on whatever you want. If it's a mani or pedi, if it's a massage, if it's lattes, if it's some new shoes, whatever it is, I fully believe that you should have that stash of cash available to you. So let's go there. Let's say you have that stash of cash. You also have tens of thousands of dollars in the bank. Let's just say you have 10K, because remember, that was our first goal we were talking about earlier. So you made your goal of having $10,000 in a savings account. You have cleaned up all of your lingering credit card debt that was costing you 18 to 30% interest, and you cleaned that up. You no longer have that. You were able to use credit cards responsibly. You're able to get your points, but you pay it off every month. You have money left over at the end of the pay period, and at the end of the month, you're no longer living check to check. You actually sometimes forget it's payday. You have investments that are growing, and you're taking advantage of what Albert Einstein calls the eighth wonder of the world, which is compounding interest. So your money is making you money, and it's compounding month after month after month. You've got good money coming in, and you know where it's going. You're in control of it. You have a plan for your money. You are paying your bills on time. You are saving. Your debt is under control. You're investing, and you have money that you can spend however you want. Now, let me ask again, how is that painful? How in the world is that painful? When you think about it that way, when you intelligently think about what it means to build wealth, I just laid it out for you. How in the world is that painful? It's not, right? Because I see it as full of pleasure, because you get to feel peaceful. You get to feel abundant. You get to feel secure. You get to feel well taken care of. You get to be generous. You get to feel proud of yourself. You get to be grateful for all that you have, right? So when you can allow yourself to intelligently think about what it will feel like to have all of what I said in place, then you can help your brain to see actually wealth building isn't painful. It isn't about deprivation. It actually gives you freedom. It actually sets you up to be able to do more and to have more. And you're not missing out on anything. You're not restricted or any of that. And when you can intelligently direct your mind to see that wealth building doesn't have to be filled with deprivation, it actually can be filled with liberation, you're getting your brain on board, and you're setting yourself up to actually enjoy it, to have fun, to get so much pleasure from it, and you have no negative consequences to deal with on the back end. And this is what is available to you if you're willing to take the time and think about it in this way, right? Instead of just succumbing to what society says, you get to intelligently put your brain to work and ask yourself questions. If you notice, I asked myself questions during this episode. I asked, how can we let our brain see wealth building as a way to avoid pain? When you ask your brain questions like that, it loves to go to work to find you answers. But when we don't ask ourselves questions and we just accept what society gives us, oh, in order to save, you're going to have to give up all the things you love. Oh, in order to save, you're going to have to deprive yourself and you're going to miss out on all the fun. What if that was just not true? Right? And if you ask yourself to go on a mission, if you ask your brain to go on a mission and to answer the questions like, how can wealth building actually help me avoid pain? It'll show you how. Right? And you can actually show yourself, you can show your brain that the truth is not having money, not building wealth is actually the painful thing, right? Because instead of having peace, you have stress. Because of living in abundance, you're living in lack. Instead of feeling financially secure, you're feeling insecure. Instead of feeling well taken care of, you feel vulnerable. Instead of feeling generous, you're feeling tight and stingy. Instead of feeling proud of yourself, you're feeling guilty and far behind, like you should be further along. And instead of feeling grateful, you have self-pity. And those, my friends, those emotions are the painful ones. And those are the emotions that many of us feel when we're not building wealth. We feel insecure. We feel stressed. We feel lack. We feel vulnerable. We feel guilty. We feel far behind. We pity ourselves. And those are the painful emotions that we feel. And then here's the kicker. We go out and we try to fix those painful emotions with things like retail therapy, and it just perpetuates the problem even more. So you are invited to break free from that cycle and to find the pleasure in wealth building. Find how wealth building can actually help you to conserve energy. Discover how wealth building allows you to avoid pain and it doesn't cause it. This, my friends, is how you can get your brain on board with this wealth building idea and make the journey enjoyable, fun, and something that you actually look forward to doing. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to sign up for your free training, How to Build Wealth Without Going on a Strict Budget, by going to jermainefoley.com/wealth class or simply going to the show notes. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to create a life with more money and more freedom, then you're invited to join the Wealthy Woman's Academy, my signature coaching program where you'll learn how to take control of your money and build wealth without sacrificing your lifestyle. To get started, head on over to jermainefoley.com/WWA. That's Jermaine with a G. See you over there. Bye-bye.